Welcome to Breaking Free, expert advice on changing your mindset to heal your body and mind. My name is Kim Wagner, and today we're speaking to the lovely Robin Graham. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here and to connect to Australia.
I know, it is wonderful. And as we were just talking before the interview, technology is a wonderful thing until it's not. So, okay. So just a little bit about you, Robin. I'm just going to read your bio. So since 1994, Robin has facilitated personal growth with Psych K. She's helped herself and others discover how to break through old filters of limitations to experience greater confidence and success, both personally and professionally. In 1997, you were selected by the originator, Rob Williams, to be the first basic workshop instructor. That is phenomenal. And again in 2003 to be the advanced integration workshop instructor. Such an honour. Designated in 2008 as the instructor for the advanced, and then you're actually also doing PER, which is PER-K, which I'm hoping you can actually tell us a little bit about as we go through the interview.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Robin, can you tell me a little bit about, I guess, yourself or your journey from where you began and how you came to be involved with Psych K, please?
I can. Do we have like an hour? Is that what we have?
We have whatever you need.
Yes. So I was in corporate. I was in the information technology world, and then in sales. And growing up, I was a competitive swimmer. So I understood willpower and discipline and determination and no pain, no gain, and that kind of thing. And yet when I was in corporate and we would set business goals, et cetera, and I'd go, I'm going to no pain, no gain, that kind of same behavior, it didn't work. And it was much easier in the pool than it was in real life. And then I got frustrated because I knew there had to be a better way than what I was actually teaching inside of organizations, not the Psych K, but another process where we talked about affirmations and we talked about goal setting and all of this amazing stuff over 3 days that I used to teach. But I felt like I was having an integrity gap because I was teaching this and trying to use it in my own life, but it wasn't working. And so it really kind of frustrated me, and I was concerned because I didn't, I'm high integrity. I didn't want to have this gap going on. So as synchronicities occur, Rob Williams was speaking at a corporate conference for some vendors of ours. And I couldn't attend, but I got the recordings of his hour-long presentation. And the title was, Does Your Left Brain Know What Your Right Brain's Doing? And I thought, well, how interesting, because I had already been discussing right and left in the trainings that I was doing. And so I listened to the recording, and at the end, it was like every cell in my body went, ring, 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 this is where you need to go. And it was as if there was no way I could not go to find out more. Yep. Right. So I called up Rob at the time, and this was in 1994. So there was no website, there was no YouTube, there was, you had to literally pick up the phone and call. And I found out that he was teaching the basic workshop, which is the first workshop, the next month. And so I flew to Denver at the time and took the basic workshop. I didn't know anything going into it other than that 1 hour presentation. So I didn't know, people nowadays, you have so much information from technology available to us. So I walked in, and a couple things were interesting about it is, one, I had always been somewhat shy and low self-esteem, and walking into a group where I had no idea who anybody was terrifying to me. Yeah. But I did it because there was almost an internal sense that whatever this is, you have to go do. And I'm so glad I did, because it actually changed my life in 1994. So yeah, and I could not explain away what occurred after the workshop as a result of the changes that occurred. And so I was like, okay, there's something real here. And I was from a technology standpoint, so I wanted to get all the whys and whys at work. But it was more important that I was experiencing the changes. And so I just kept working with it. sharing, with private sessions with friends and friends of friends, and they got amazing results. So in 97, when Rob decided that he couldn't train as many people as he wanted because he didn't like to travel, he asked, now there's actually 7 of us that went through that first certification. I happen to be the elder now, so I'm the one that has lasted. And then, so that sort of started that path of being an instructor. And it's just been an honor. Yeah, an absolute honor to teach it.
It's so amazing that you were there from the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And in a way where it was very hard to find out about things, because it didn't just pop up in your news feed. It didn't, if someone didn't share something on Facebook or send you an email.
Exactly.
And I think that it was totally meant to be. And I think it's even most exciting is that you got to train with Rob,
right.
Straight from him. How phenomenal that must have been.
Exactly. Yeah.
And did you travel around a fair bit when you first did the basic? Did it take a while to sort of take off and get known?
As far as teaching? Yeah, it's still taking off. People are finding it easier because it does show up on YouTube feeds now and various places in books, and Bruce Lipton often mentions it in his presentations. But it's still, it's still under the radar. There's a tipping point that's starting to happen. We have instructors all over the world, and it's translated into about 12 languages for the workshops and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's much bigger. I mean, on any one given weekend, because we typically teach, there's a variety of workshops, but we typically teach them on the weekends. There's probably 10 or 15 workshops across the world in different languages. And that's thrilling from just 7 of us teaching in the States only to international. It really is amazing.
Yeah, it sure is. And you mentioned Bruce Lipton before. I was actually watching an interview with him on Gaia, I think, TV, and he mentioned Site K. So I know I instantly paused the video, opened another tab, Googled it, found an instructor in Sydney, booked it, it's done.
Yeah, right. Beautiful.
That's how fast it was.
You got the same ringing. Go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was like, wow. It was like it almost slapped me in the face. It was so hard, but wow, I have to do this. And my excitement to see that we had some instructors in Australia, it was just wow. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Right.
Yeah. So when you started doing the advanced workshop, you were integral in creating that as well, or did Rob teach you and then you went from there?
Rob taught. So he originally had the basic and the advanced as the workshops that were offered. And so I took the basic from him, and then I also took the advanced from him. And at that time is when, right around that time is when he decided he wanted instructors. So I became a basic instructor, and then 2 years later, he decided he wanted to have advanced instructors. So I was asked to be one of the first. And there were 5 of us originally as advanced instructors. And once again, I'm the elder that's stayed around. So yeah. And now
experienced. You're the experienced.
Yes. Thank you. I'm not the oldest. I will say I am not the oldest. But and so now I personally teach all the workshops except for one. And one of our instructors teaches that because it's a medical approach, and so he's a doctor and he teaches that one. But it's been just a blessing to teach all of them. And then I also was asked to be the certifying agent for the advanced. So any of our basic instructors that want to become advanced instructors, I certify them how to teach that workshop. So
so you taught my instructor.
I did, yes.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's really wonderful.
Yeah. So
and could you tell me a little?
A lot of interconnected.
I know it's a web, and I'm actually going to Sydney in November to do that one course that you don't teach. So Ian will be there, so he'll be.
Yeah, give me a hug. Give him a hug for me.
I will. So can you tell me a little bit about PERK? But it's perk.
It's pronounced as a single word as perk. Like in the States, we talk about business perks, which is an extra benefit that you get. So even though there's a hyphen, it's still pronounced perk. And what happened is we couldn't buy PERK.com. Some coffee shop had it, so we threw the dash in when we bought the website, not thinking how people would pronounce it, Site K, and then they'd say per K. So we asked people to pronounce it as one word. So the idea with it is similar to Psych K in that with Psych K, we can address subconscious beliefs and create lasting change. With PERC, the engine is the same, the methodology is the same, but we frame it differently for businesses. So whether that's an entrepreneurial business or a large organization, anything in between, the idea is a lot of organizations, one of the numbers is like billions, $16 billion or something like that, every year is spent on training and development inside organizations, whether, again, that's an individual entrepreneur or a large organization. And the whole goal of training and development in companies is to get behavior change. And so that's where PERC can fit in that maybe the team has all these skill sets that they're learning, but they're not applying them. And that's because they are afraid of change or they're unsure of a lot of things. So that's one way to think about PERC. The ultimate application of PERC is actually to elevate the consciousness of business. So our businesses, a lot of them are trying to break out of this, but we still have traditional mindsets around business that it's all profit. And a lot of the organizations are now looking at triple or quadruple bottom line, where it's not just about profit, it's about how are we impacting our people? How are we impacting our planet? How are we addressing our passion and making sure our passion and purpose is in there? So the ultimate of PERC is not just to improve skill set and behavior, but to actually elevate the way an organization makes decisions and moves forward with sustainability in all areas, profit, planet, people, you know, moving their service or their vision forward. So that, yeah, that's where that's
really amazing. And I think that if you're helping the people individually with the Psych K, imagine having those people working in the businesses
exactly.
And doing the PERC as well.
Right.
That's phenomenal.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And that's actually happened a few times where somebody personally has just come to the Psych K workshop and then they go back into the business, their boss or whatever sees this huge difference in them and asks, wait, what have you done?
What have you done?
Yeah.
You look
so that opens
today.
up the door. Yeah, exactly.
So that's like, it's like, I know when we spoke the other week, we were talking about the ripple effect with Psych K. So if you help one person change a belief and that belief system then just ripples through, first of all, themselves, their family, then their community or their workplace.
Exactly.
And it just raises consciousness worldwide and it actually helps everyone.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. Quite often you'll hear someone say, you know, in the Psych K world specifically, I did balances, I did the change processes with myself regarding my mother, and it's amazing how much nicer my mother actually is, you know. So it's our perception that energetically puts these thoughts out, and then the person responds to us and we think it's them. So it's like a perfect mirror.
Right.
And instead of pointing the finger, well, you need to get fixed, often what we say is, let's look at what the trigger is, what's impacting you, do the change work, the balances, as we call them in Psych K, and see what happens. And even what people have said, even if the person doesn't change, my perception has shifted and I'm not triggered by them anymore.
And that's the biggest thing. What they say about stress is you can't stop the stress, but you can stop how you react to that stress.
Exactly.
So for me, Psych K has been quite phenomenal in that way.
Right.
I know most people would know my story that know me, but my mum died when I was 6 months pregnant with my second child, and I know I had spoken to my doctor at the time and said, "Oh, look, I'm worried. Obviously, I'm upset about my mum. Is it affecting my baby?" And I was categorically told no.
Right.
No. That was 15 years ago. And yeah, it really had affected him. There were so many things that had affected him.
Right.
So when I saw Bruce Lipton's interview that day, immediately I thought of my son, and I went and did the training. And to say that the changes that it helped for him, it was just life-changing. I have never seen a change so phenomenal, and it was so powerful that I just can't believe it, and I can't recommend it enough, because he basically, I was losing my mum, but because he was, in my womb, he basically lost his mum. He got the same emotions.
Exactly.
So he basically lost his mum. So he felt what I felt. And what I noticed when he was a young child is he would get a little emotional about things when we would speak about my mum, even though he'd never met her.
Wow.
So he would react how I would react. So when we did clear the beliefs for him, I did quite a bit of work with him, and he's very open to it.
Yeah.
The change has been outstanding, and I'm so grateful to have found Psych K. And it just, like I said, it goes back so many generations as well, though. So, you know, he's not only carrying, as all of our children, what we have experienced, but for up to 14 generations.
Right. That's the current research that shows up to 14 generations of experiences carry on. So, you know, if there was famine in the family history, then there's this need to eat, or there's, you know, something impacting that person today. Or one of the research areas was on family generations after the Holocaust and the people who experienced that, and they have still carrying that burden with them. What's beautiful, and your son is a great example, is it doesn't matter when we gather those burdens. The process of Psych K can happen sometimes within 5 to 15 minutes for a single balance. And you might have to do 2 or 3, but you don't have to carry that burden the rest of your life. There's possibility to change it in a very short period of time. It's amazing. I just taught a workshop this past weekend, and one of the ladies in there had, she was grinding her teeth, you know, at night, and, you know, doctors couldn't do anything about it, right? And so we did a particular process within the workshop, and discovered that it was connected to her father. And she said, I don't get that connection, but that's what was indicated. We did the balancing around it, and that was the first day. And the second day she came in and she said, I was aware that I did not grind my teeth last night. And the third day of the workshop, she came in and she said, nothing, no grinding at all.
Wow.
And she said, I've been doing this for as long as I know.
That's incredible.
So,
we don't know. It's interesting because we can go somewhere, be in an experience, and think, I've never seen this before. I've never even heard of this before. And you react so strongly.
right.
Where does that come from? Well, it comes from who knows where, generations ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we also, even as a child, something can happen and we make a connection that logically as an adult makes no sense. But as a child, there was an emotional experience and it made a connection. So that quite often happens. And that's one of the beautiful things about Psych K is we don't have to know the source. We don't have, if somebody has, like I just had a client this morning and he said, I don't feel very confident, but he said, I have great success, but there's just this lack of confidence within me. So we created a goal statement, which is what we call the statements we work with. And it was simple. I am confident. And he went through one of our balances, and 5 minutes later, he said it just shifted. He knew immediately that it was a big impact. He said, I've read all the books, listened to the gurus, done the affirmations, done the hypnosis tapes at night. And he said, I know this just changed.
Yeah, and it can be like that.
Right.
As Bruce says, there's 3 ways to change a belief. One of them is a catastrophic event, which we don't want to go through that.
We don't want to do.
No. One is affirmations, but you can do affirmations till the cows come home and never actually have confirmation that it's changed the subconscious belief. That to me was the thing, is how do I know it's working?
Right.
Or you do Psych K, and literally that's when I thought, aha. And they remain changed, because I'm still, I still check, because I've only been doing it for a few years, not since 1994.
Yeah.
And just to, not that I don't believe in the system, but I just check and I say to my clients, look, my beliefs that I changed when I first started are still there. They are lasting. It's very fast. It's lasting.
Right.
I don't actually need to know what's happened in your life before you get there. I don't need to know the specific details if it's something personal. I just need to know I'm not confident.
Right.
We can do that. Done. Yep. It's sorted.
Where are you today, and where do you want to go? And then we
correct.
Put a statement and move you in that direction.
That's right. And sometimes the reaction after the belief has changed is subtle. Other times it's like light and day.
Exactly.
They can walk out a foot taller, sparkling eyes. But sometimes I will get a message a few days later from someone and said, oh, look, I really didn't notice it too much, but now I'm realizing that I'm reacting so differently to all these things that are happening in my life.
Right.
So sometimes it's a little more subtle.
Well, it can be, yes, absolutely. It can be both of those. And I think sometimes we don't notice it until our life brings a situation to us. Like she may have had a normal, happy couple days, and then some chaos shows up. And then she realizes she's responding differently. So I think sometimes it's still huge. We just don't have the reality check yet that it has shifted. Or people just completely forget, you know? So what's fascinating about this is that once you change that belief, you're in new normal, you're in a new experience. And what used to cause a stress or reaction isn't there anymore. And so you're just flowing, you know, there's no resistance, you're just flowing through it and you don't even notice it. I often tell people you have to be aware of where the resistance was, because we notice resistance, we don't notice flow necessarily.
Yeah, that's true. And the first thing that I noticed myself was that life was easier. It just seemed.
Yeah. And that's hard to measure. You know, people always go, well, what's the measurement?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Life is easier. How do you measure that one? You know?
No, you don't. But it's, you know, you just seem to float through and things come with ease.
Right.
The stress is less. Like, for example, when we first started this call this morning, my camera didn't work on my Zoom. So possibly a few years ago, I might not have reacted as well. I might have freaked out a bit and not been able to go forward, but we found a solution.
Right.
And I'm not phased at all. There's a solution and off we go. So for me, there's a lot of those things come up in life. Life isn't simple. Right. Life happens. You know, we have car accidents like I had the other day. We have children in hospital that I had the other week. We have all these things, but you know what? It's all good, because if your perspective has changed and your beliefs have changed, you can experience things. Doesn't mean that they're not stressful. It just means that your reaction is a little easier, a little better.
Right. You're coming from a place of knowing it's going to be okay versus, oh my God, you know, the sky is burning.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just amazing. And what I love, we mentioned it, but just to go back to it, is it's lasting. So there's, like there's things that I balanced in 1994 that every once in a while I'll check and it's still there, you know?
Still there.
Yeah. Now, the other thing around that though is, we're all on an evolutionary, I think of it as a spiral. So we're all on an evolutionary spiral. So on occasion, something will come back around. It's not exactly the same. It's just an upper level of it, you know? So, like, I might have balanced, I am confident, just as an example, in 1994, but my need level of confidence was different than maybe it is today.
Agreed.
So we can naturally up level, and that's the beauty of the workshops, is that you learn how to do this work for yourself, and you don't have to depend on anybody else. And so
that's the best feeling. That's the best feeling in the world. Oh my goodness, that triggered me. Why did that trigger me? Let's clear that.
Exactly. You know, and you learn how to do it within your own house, or you can work with other people. Certainly, it's always beneficial to talk to people and to, because sometimes we're in our own stuff. We can't hear what our issue is. But you learn how to do it for yourself, like you did. You brought it home to your family and helped your son immensely.
Immensely, and that helped the family. It helped everyone.
Exactly.
And now I'm fortunate to be helping other people. So it's the best feeling in the world. And
they're fortunate to have you. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, I think we might end that there. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
So appreciated. It's such a privilege to speak to you.
Thank you.
And I thank you so much. So I'm the bottom of the email and underneath the video, I'll have the link to Robin's website. Robin's also included a free booklet to transform your life, and that will be included as well. And all of the information about Robin's on her website. There's so much information. She's so accomplished. And thank you so much. It's been a privilege to talk to you.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.